Wow, it's us. Hello. Oh, you're still muted, Amanda. Uh,
Oops. Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of Live Resonate. This is the last time you're going to see us in these rooms, doing it like this. We're going
Mm,
to be in person in 2
really
days.
exciting.
Mm. Um,
Mm.
so it's kind of like a bit of a farewell podcast, a bit of a celebration podcast for the rebirth of our partnership, which is Crystallization Culture, and this is Crystallization Culture, um, which is like the combining of our energies into this cultural momentum where we're giving people the spiritual technology that they need to realize their like true crystalline selves. And it's like that's all spirituality is tuning into like your own signal, who you actually are, without the conceptual layers and without the uh interference of other people's energies. And last podcast we talked about the interference of other people's energies and sort of how to disconnect from energies which are not meeting your purpose, which is negative beings, energies, people, higher levels of being, lower levels of being. Yeah. And I think recently me and Amanda have both come into even deeper and deeper realization of the inherent divinity of our vessels. I'm wondering, maybe Amanda, you could start with talking a bit about that.
That's a quite a big thing, right? Isn't it?
Oh yeah.
The way that you were talking about it before, what was arising for me is the recognition that each of us is an answer to a question that the universe is already asking.
Mm.
And so, a big part of our inherent divinity is recognizing that we are already participating in the perfection of its flows and noticing what we can do to open to that awareness and allow for that flow to move through us unobstructed to the like true pinnacle of our capacity.
Mm. That's so perfect. Yeah, it's like truly everyone is already doing the perfect thing. Um and the reason that that perfect thing contains suffering is because they haven't noticed that they're already perfect. And what's already happening for them is actually just their perfect being. And it's kind of like this quantum effect that we've talked about before, where just by observing that it is the reality that things are perfect, there is a change in your being, um, which transforms you into a being that can recognize that perfection, and then that's the relief of suffering and the recognition of your own inherent divinity in whatever you're doing. And
Mm.
it's not conditional on anything. It's like society is so full of rules, and this is the only thing without rules.
Yes. This is one of the things that I think can become confusing for people is understanding that all of the pain and mess and suffering is one particular part of perfection, and that opening ourselves up to ease and to non doing and to everything having natural flow without coming up against our own blocks is another expression of that same perfection. Because the universe wants to do this learning through us no matter how it's happening. It wants to do this learning through us in the encounter inside the self and the encounter with the ostensible other, even though it is just the self as projected divinity, as diffracted divinity, as occupying all of these vessels so that it can have these encounters. And so it sort of becomes awareness choice about how we want to do that learning for the universe. And then when you step into that awareness, it no longer has to be like, oh, I'm in this struggle, oh, I'm in this pattern, oh, I'm in this repeating of this pattern because it's my karmic learning. Now it's like the knot has been opened up, and you can still follow the golden thread of what is trying to be what is actively being explored by the universe through those same tangled motions can now be done smoothly.
Yeah, and the way that Ra puts it is recognizing the creator. So when you speak to someone else, you're seeing that you're this one infinite creator and they're this one infinite creator too. You know, when you're eating food, the food is the one infinite creator and you're the one infinite creator too. And the power of this practice is that it's real. So even if you're just conceptually putting on the idea that everything is the one creator and applying it in your day-to-day life, you're still closer to reality than if you didn't do that. And then ideally that unfolds into the true recognition that that is already the case, which is just that everything is this inherent living divinity that is manifesting so many different situations and individuations for itself as part of its own infinite expansion. And it's like it's infinite and it's expanding. And that's a bit of a complicated one to understand. Hmm. Yeah, and I think for me the way I articulate this in terms of like energy and the path is that there's like driving. If you're in a car and you're driving, you can be driving towards enlightenment, and then the people you're connected with and the way that you're interfacing with the world, how much you're respecting the free will of other beings, how much you're not forcing yourself on the world, how much you're connecting with people that have mutual resonance, how much you're reaching out to enlightened teachers with questions, how much you're building yourself a life that can support your work to investigate reality. That's like building the environment that you're driving in. And then driving is like these sudden noticings that everything is just this one creator. Hmm.
What's arising for me is we spent so much time last time talking about negative connection and positive connection, and there's a level of understanding where all of the universe is diffracting into these subtle distortions of this oneness. And all of those are like outside of time agreements to play certain types of learning games with each other, or like not even learning. I feel like that's a bit of a understatement about what it's doing, and a bit of a conceptual perversion, because it's like it's natural growth through this exploration with each other. It's like an ecology of entering back into itself along all of these rhizomatic monadic diffractions where pieces break off and then come back into each other. And at each level of that, whether it's like person to person conflict, or negative and positive cosmic conflict, or masculine and feminine polarity, or all of these other things, it's just the universe deciding that it will move into this agreement of this game with itself so that it can understand these big waves of difference which allow for everything to take place in the first place.
Hmm. Yeah, and this is kind of why everything is actually great fun. Um, it's like uh everything is actually just the one creator sort of playing with themselves in the cosmic game. And like that's not a beautification or a poetry to the reality. Like that is the reality, that the forces of the universe, when you tune into them and start really investigating reality to its core, is that there's love in the present moment. There's the one creator in the present moment that is everything, and that everything is great fun. And it's like that's like the motion of gravity is great fun. Like the flow of meaning through your being is great fun. It's like this quality of fun, which is kind of like the edge line of expansion of the infinite, where this infinite thing wants to discover more and more unique individuations that it can expand into and through. And that expansion is what fun is
Yes.
at
So
every level. Yeah.
this makes me really excited about our current positioning in space-time. A lot of people can come into a lot of despair about what the material world is looking like, what it can feel like trying to build community and be in engagement and all these other things. But when we are in these high chaos environments, what we're doing is harvesting the most complex patterns possible to feed back into the universal system. And the way that the universe works is that it's intracausal. All of time affects all of time. So as we diffract and harvest and diversify patterns, what we're doing is we're feeding that right back into the beginning
Mm.
that everything projects from. The beginning again is reductive, like it doesn't quite work that way, but like we're feeding it right back into the greater order system that everything projects from. And in so doing, we are in this privileged position. We have selected to be in this privileged position of gobbling up some of the most complex, most confusing, most difficult things that the universe has ever experienced for the uh, mutual benefit of the entire universe.
Mm. And this is kind of like you might consider, it's like, yeah, we're talking about the driving metaphor where there's an environment that can be really beautiful and connective and like full of friendship and companionship and like beauty, natural beauty and other beauty. And um there can be this path which is just painful and difficult and hateful and terrible and suicidal. And the question is kind of like, which one is better? And it's like the infinite thing that the universe is doesn't need you to choose the hard path. uh you're like so welcome to choose the positive path. And even though it may seem like you have some unique qualities that would stop you from choosing the positive path, actually everything you do in your being is a uniqueness coming to fruition. And that uniqueness and expansion is infinite no matter what path you take. And it's like you have so much permission to be choosing the highest and best things for yourself, no matter what your being is. And that's just something that's always available. Hmm. Sort of like the importance of the environment is the happiness of your being. And actually, the happiness of your being makes it easier to get to the end of the drive. Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think there's also a bit of stickiness around the idea that because we are witnessing a world that is full of a lot of perceptible hardship where people are expressing a lot of suffering, then it becomes taboo to be in your own happiness, to be choosing what is appropriate to you, to be actually like magnifying, amplifying, and projecting that for other people. But the reality there is that the more you lean into and create that, the more of that becomes possible for other people because it is a resonant signature that other people are capable of entraining to the same way that you entrain to a crystal or a flower essence or something that exists in a high vibrational space where it's like, oh, there's this lightness to my being that is able to not there's a distinction here, right? Because you can reach out to someone and cord yourself to them, which is a withdrawing of their energy into yourself, which is not the same as naturally being elevated by being in the presence of resonance, which is what I'm describing here. Um,
Hmm.
and so when that's happening, what we do is like our own satisfaction, our own happiness, it becomes a path of liberation for others. It becomes um, like a parting of the sea for everyone that we can all walk through together. And it becomes easier too to recognize that it's possible to be different in an instant, that it's possible to choose different things than you've been choosing up until that point, and that doing so is not selfish, but rather for the best benefit of all.
Yeah, and just some other examples of things that people entrain to. It's like whenever you've watched a YouTube video of a spiritual teacher and felt that like resonance, like you're moving forwards, that's entrainment as well. Like watching
Mm.
this podcast is entrainment to like our frequency. And it's like that's exactly it. And there's also like a narrative that if you really come into your own self, that actually that's bad, which is crazy. It's like the most dangerous thing to our society is people realizing that they don't need it. And
Mhm.
realizing that you don't need it is realizing abundance, which is inherent in the present moment. Realizing that you are just yourself, and all of these cultural influences are actually imprints or obstructions in your system, in your being, and realizing that you have the personal power to change the world, and it's
Mm.
not through, um, being a savior or being like a hero in a war or something. It's like just by pursuing positive connections and realizing your own true nature, you are naturally a beacon that transforms the world, no matter what you do.
Yes, yes. I want to share a little bit of story along that narrative because one of the things that society had really put into me is that if I was all of myself, I would be rejected. And the thing is that I'd had a lot of experiences that seemed to be confirming that. But, or, and what I've learned at this point is that that was actually pointing out non resonant connections to me. What was happening was I was meeting enforcement from those societal patterns, or I was meeting rejection from non resonant spaces that were telling me you aren't actually meant to be here. Because once I had the discernment to be seeking resonance, every time I have unburdened myself, every time I've liberated myself, every time I've come more into my power and presence and ability to articulate who I am and what I'm doing, I have been met with more love and more acceptance and more network and more power and more like co-thriving. Like it just opens up so much possibility and so much community because we're all starving for each other right now.
Yeah, and when you're coming into this positive alignment and you're being met with rejection, it's kind of like the reality of the thing kind of kicks in somewhere in your being, which is like, this isn't a resonant connection. This thing that I've been connected to actually is a negative thing. And like, I recognize now that it's better not to have this. And then it's like there's a choice there. You can really step into the knowing that trusting your own resonance is going to lead to perfect and beautiful things, and what you have right now actually isn't right for you. Or you can step into denial of your own body and mind and spirit and what it's like thrumming for. And that's a choice that everyone is making all the time on all levels of their being in every interaction with everything.
Mm. There are so many narratives there, a lot of which we talked about last time, where it's like, oh, I'll be a bad person if I'm doing this. Oh, I'll be abandoning something that I put a lot of time into, or I'll be breaking social norms that tell me that we should stay invested in people even if they're harmful to us. And the skills that we talked about last time in terms of like how to maintain boundaries and keep connection if it feels healthy to do so with the positive parts of a person while breaking the negative parts help us to move through that. But it's also like the capacity to overcome those narratives in the first place. And that a lot of that has to do with like that, not has to do, is the essence of doing things like shadow work and going into your past lives and finding out where these narratives have gotten stuck all across the rhizome of our being and pulling them together and letting us know that it's not happening right now and that our reality can be different and that we can exist in this present moment of love.
Mm. There's a thing that I've seen happen with people who want to find their resonance, where they see something that's resonant for someone else and is doing beautiful things for someone else, and then they try to do that thing, be it like a meditation technique, a way of being, a way of talking, a way of thinking. And this isn't a suggestion to imitate anyone else's patterns or ways of being. It's to find that part of you inside of you that knows what's resonant already and to follow that voice, because
Mm-hmm.
it's always going to be something personal. That's just a reality of the universe, is that you're actually a perfect, unique being that has things that are good for it and bad for it. And those things that are perfect for it are completely unique. And you have to
Yes.
find them. And you can find them in the hundreds and thousands of messages that the universe has been sending you about what is actually good for you, that have been hard to receive because of the negative connections and environments in your life that are giving you narratives that those aren't actually the things that you need to pursue. And
Yes.
trusting that it is changes your life for the better.
This is such a beautiful opportunity to go into inner child work because usually what happened is, or not usually, our child, when we were younger, we knew what we were meant to be and what we were meant to do, and we were shining it out as brightly as possible. And the systems that we were embedded in were finding ways to shut that down inside of us. And so the further we return into that knowing through inner child work, through soul recovery, through touching into the things that feel like fun, that feel like play, the more it's easy to recognize that that message, that thread has been there all along and been calling to us.
Yeah. Spiritual practice and like meant to be doing, what you're meant to be doing is the path of least resistance, and that is the most resonant.
Mhm.
And
I wanna go ahead.
uh the universe it's okay. The universe is a being that is giving you resonant, easy pathways to pursue. You just have to find the scent that's in the air already and has been your whole life, and follow it down the road until you find it. And
Yes.
no suffering is necessary.
Yes. This is how healthy societies would build themselves if we were not being conditioned out of our own resonance. Of just like in every beehive and every anthill, every individual has a driving force that leads them to fill certain roles. we are being driven by the universe to take up certain roles for each other and in the world. And what we do is we instead, uh, I'm trying very hard not to be with the oppressive engines anymore, actually. So, what instead is happening is that there are forces that have been running for a very long time that are attempting to homogenize individuals and say, actually, there's only like 5 things that you can be in this world, or even 500 things that you can be in this world, and they are the acceptable, approved patterns. And that's entirely non functional for healthy systems. Healthy systems, the world is speaking to you, the culture is speaking to you, the family is speaking to you, and what is needed arises through you and your bliss and your interest, and it is guided and supported and scaffolded and developed by those around you until everything is thriving in this perfect humming rhythm. And we take that from ourselves and from each other. This model takes it from us and from each other by forcing what's allowed into very small, narrow containers. And that is why there's so much beautiful work that is calling to our hearts that is not being done. And when we liberate ourselves, it becomes possible to step out of this stream where we're learning through suffering for the universe about these patterns and into this other stream where we are giving the liberation pathway through that learning.
Hmm. Yeah, and when you're following that beautiful resonance, you can find the subtle dissatisfaction of not being in the present moment when you're not, and you can also be leading the most beautiful, wonderful life. It's like you don't need extra punishment for yourself. It's already punishing enough not being fully enlightened. You can have the most perfect life and be on the path. And something I wanted to mention is like there can be a experience where when receiving information like what we're saying, there's a reaction in the being, in your being, where it's like a rejection or like an attack, or it's like, I don't like this. And if you notice that and notice how mindless it is and how the things we're saying are actually wonderful and beautiful, you can see that's the implanted narrative of the society trying to protect itself from being destroyed by these exact words. And it's not actually a part of your personal being. That's something that has been conditioned into you by, family, parents, just by society to stay in your body, mind, and spirit. And when words come up that threaten it, it reacts with things like anger and malice and unhappiness. And the key insight when something like that happens is that the parts of you that are negative react negatively when they're in danger of being removed and disconnected from your system. It's like a last attempt to survive. And if you just keep following the thread, then those voices that seemed so personal and so powerful fade away, and you realize that they were never a part of you at all. They were just part of this implanted thing that was sapping your energy. Mm.
Mm. I feel like that's very wise and important to know too, in terms of like when the voice arises that tells you that you can't follow your bliss or your heart or your true purpose within this universe, that is shadow speaking. That is something for you to investigate. That is a pattern for you to detach from, or a negative entity that you can remove or gain assistance in removing. It is a narrative that has been run like a wheelbarrow rut into the like physical matter of your body, and all of this can be liberated through energy, through our own stories, through the way that we reinvestigate or rebase our timelines. All of it's available to us, and it's recognizing these things not as hard stops but rather as calls inward.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they're they're doing, and it's like you can find in your heart gratitude for these beautiful negative things that are guiding you to more resonance, which is exactly what they're doing when they give you these thoughts and feelings that are so difficult to experience when you don't see them as something implanted. And I think that it might be nice, uh, and this can be something that's a daily ritual, and we talked about it before. If everyone who's watching this podcast live or on the YouTube video were to repeat out loud, I invite Archangel Michael to disconnect me from any negative energies and entities. And I invite Archangel Michael to seal me from any negative entities and energies.
I invite Archangel Michael to disconnect me from any negative entities and energies. I invite Archangel Michael to seal me from any negative energies and negative entities.
And Amanda had a little stumble there. And what I've noticed is sometimes the negative entities and energies can make you stumble so that you say the wrong thing, and just say it again. Just say it again.
Yeah.
And say it right. And Amanda doesn't need to say it again and say it right because she's super protected and done this all already.
So that actually brings up something for me, is that watching the slippery behavior of negative entity attachments is a really like keen way of noticing them, because like it takes a certain type of energetic awareness to notice them, and if that's not available to you yet, you can notice them in their avoidance patterns, in the way that when something comes up, they like it gets memory hold. Like if there's something where you're like, oh, this feels really important, and then all of a sudden it's gone, that's a thread to follow, as in like a follow that thread like a predator, right? Like get the scent of the thing that is happening and track it down. And similarly, if you are being called into like love and light experiences, being invited to speak with teachers, and you feel avoidant or you don't want to join into groups that will probably be positive for you, that's an entity that is afraid of being detached.
Yeah. And I think that's super important to recognize that all of these positive entities and energies that are available in the universe and as human beings and as gods and deities are always filled with love for you. And all of the patterns that come up when it comes to interacting with them in any way, be it watching their videos, doing devotional practices to deity, like inviting them to help you, DMing me or Amanda with something important. Those patterns that tell you that we're not receptive or that it's not just going to be received with love are the things trying to protect themselves. And this fundamental shift in consciousness where those things that aren't you can be recognized as other rather than being identified with is so powerful. And the reason that it's powerful is because it's true.
I have an example along the lines of what we've been talking about. When I was doing all of the place-based research that we've talked about before, where I was working with the city of Lowell, Massachusetts, I became possessed through my research because I didn't know that I was doing magic, and I didn't know how to put out proper protections or what to say to entities when you're allowing them to use or enter your system, or how to know whether a connection is safe to do that. Things that we've talked about before, but like just throw it out there in case anyone's listening and this is their first one or their only one. When an entity is making contact with you, you ask them, do you come for the highest and best good of all beings? And they should be able to confirm that to you very quickly and easily. If there is any stumbling, any confusion, any offering of anything that is not exactly that, refuse connection. So I was possessed by this city, and what happened was I started avoiding my academic mentor, who is a witch. And I started missing appointments and deadlines with her and not going on video calls and asking for extensions. And I was actually going to take an entire extra semester to finish my project. And she like kind of almost energetically bullied me into getting on a call with her. And as soon as I did, she was like, Mandy, you're possessed. We've got to do all of this like ancestor work. We have to call in your protections. We have to boundary your property. We have to cleanse your body. And she gave me all of the necessary instructions to do so. But for like 3.5 months, this entity was using my body to avoid getting the help that I needed through connecting with her.
And really, it's as soon as you notice that it is something else, that it is not you, that it's something in your being rather than is your being, is the moment that it stops being a possession and starts being an exorcism. And that applies to all levels of being, like cellular, energetic, emotional. You can notice this in so many different parts of yourself. And don't be afraid to challenge your own thoughts. Do you come in and for the highest and best benefit of all beings? And just seeing what happens. That's like a powerful practice which can either reveal entities that are attempting to put thoughts in your head that want to harm you, and then they like will refuse or confuse or otherwise try to disrupt your verification check. And they try and do it in a very sneaky way. They'll be like, oh, I don't understand what you're saying. It's things like that.
I have a message from your grandmother and she just wants to help you.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's no depths to the evil. The evil is infinite. There's no endpoint to how sneaky and manipulative negative connections can be. And as you come more and more into your own awareness that negative connections are real and you want to disconnect from them, and positive connections are real and you want to connect with them, you'll learn how to discern what is a negative connection and what is a positive connection, and your life will transform into this beautiful angel mandala of positive resonance.
We have a fun request in the chat that we tune into each other's energy bodies.
Under what context? What does it mean?
I'm not certain.
Maybe we can do an after show or something. Yeah. I think there's something that we could talk about more, which is like how deity and like God is like a natural part of your being that can be integrated in a natural way. It's like it's the same way that there's these things that are natively you. There's things that are those things that are natively you are also these cosmic things and also these animal things. And there's kind of like this question of like what is me and what is other, like what can be integrated and what is like a imposition or like a foreign energy. And I feel like essentially anything that can be integrated such that it's not visible as a separate thing, and you're left in full integrity of what you are, uh, is something that is already you, that you're noticing is already you. And that can be the case with gods and with animals, where you're noticing that this cosmological structure, you're a diffraction of it, and you can reclaim all the power of that god structure or that animal structure just by seeing that it's already a part of your being and has been supporting you. And through that quantum effect of just observing that reality, it becomes more real in your experience.
Mm. In work channeling with spirit, the way that they tend to talk about this is lineage. And that's we diffract from cosmic lineages, which are the God, or as the universe diffracts into different forces and different powers and different cosmological imprints, those things take on distortions that are their own personalities, that their own being, that are deity at different levels of the distortion. And we then diffract from those stories to carry out and be a part of those narratives and learnings inside those bodies of deities that are inside the body of God. And we are all capable of recognizing that at the highest level possible, that the things that come to us as our story are coming to us because they are already part of us, because we are the signet bearers and torch carriers of what they intend for this world. And we are able to be a part of their cosmic functioning in our full embodied presence, like for them and through them, and that that is the source of profound power, and that that is true of the cosmic lineages like we were just describing, but then also of the earthly lineages of different like ascendant masters or types of practice. All of these are in our soul rhizome through our various past lives as things that we've been initiated into and participating with. And then we can become the bearers of that lineage's way forward by integrating the fullness of that into ourselves too. So as you recognize certain teachers or certain ideas or certain ways of being and understanding the world, that's something that you can absorb fully as you, and then be like a beacon for amplifying more of, and again, for like reentry into the learning process through the universal rising.
And it's like that intermingling of being, when it's a thing that is already you, is noticing the reality that has always already been the case. It's like you've always been attuned to this particular type of meditation, and like it has just been coming naturally through you and not been something that you've pulled in from somewhere else, and that isn't so naturally integrated that it happens without you thinking about it. And it's kind of like that's also the difference in positive connections and negative connections, is that positive connections are present without thinking and managing and controlling with the mind. And negative connections, it's like they are the controlling and thinking and managing. Mm. Mm.
So, a huge part of shamanism is actually this capacity to slide across modalities of being so that you can recognize that way of seeing and being into your own self. So it becomes the ability to become a tree. And then all of a sudden, tree is part of what I'm able to do, what I'm able to be, what I'm able to witness for the universe. And now I recognize the fullness of divinity through the way of being that a tree is, where it's an expansive ecology and it experiences time differently. And all of these ways of seeing, like as a human, we're able to project our consciousness into the consciousness of other beings to witness. And as we do this, what we're able to do is slide our own perceptions into larger bandwidths. And a big piece of this is that the more we open and the more we do it, the more complex awareness becomes available to us, the more we're able to slide into something that is truly foreign, something that is truly not thinking like a human. And that becomes uh, a really holistic way to encounter the newness of your being and the power that is available to it. Because it really does break down those boundaries, those narratives, those patterns that were holding themselves in place and holding your expansive capacity from coming to the surface the way that it's naturally able to. Now in the chat, we've got positive connection is effortless and relaxing, whereas negative connection is stressful and effortful. And I would say that that's mostly true, with there being the distinction that the stuckness of the pattern can create a little bit of a confusion, and you have to be in discernment about knowing whether it's actually effortful to do the positive thing or if it's effortful to break the negative habit that is keeping you from the positive thing, to break the negative attachment that is distorting your relationship to the positive connection. And so, yes, it will always be effortless, but it can sometimes be confusing, and that piece of discernment can be very valuable. Oh, what are health problems energetically? That's a great one. So, in articulating this, it's always really important to uh, come to the awareness that none of this is a blaming, that we are all in the process of learning, that we're all in a process of relating to our bodies, that we're all in a process of relation with the world, and that what's happening to our bodies is showing us what has been happening in energy for a really long time. And so energy always precedes form, and energy has momentum. So as our bodies start to take on health problems, well, there's two branches that I want to talk about here too, because the one of them is that we do, when we come into space time and choose to incarnate, we do take on soul contracts that are going to be the things that we're working through in this lifetime. And some people have selected physical burdens to be their soul contract work of this lifetime. And so that's one type of what's happening in the body, is that this has been a deliberate choice for a certain type of experience for the universe. And that process and exploration is what that incarnation is doing with its time. And that is a really choiceful way of being, and takes a lot of power to make that choice and a lot of bravery. And then the other one is that there's this negative energy momentum that has been in our system, and it is doing all of these distortions into our field that gradually move into our body. And one of the most important things I've learned about the body is that it is an incredibly literal system. And literal here means that it communicates to us in what we've come to think of as metaphors. Like when your back is hurting, you might not be standing up for yourself. When your feet are twisted, you might not be moving in the right direction. There are different ways that we start attacking ourselves energetically that have been going on for a long time, that start to metastasize and show up in the body and appear as all these patterns. Um, I guess there's also a third branch, because you can have illnesses come up as you're clearing, which means that there's been all of this stuck gunk that is in your body that is moving through, and part of the process of moving through it is going through some sort of illness or some sort of embodied unpleasantness, as what is clearing through you actually clears out of its system because it's been stored in there for so long.
Mm. Soul
Hey, welcome
contracts
back.
as well. Hey. Soul contracts as well. It's like it's not a contract. It's something that you wanted to do for this lifetime, and it's something that you've chosen so that you can learn.
Yeah.
Um, it's nothing
That's
that
a much
you
more accurate
signed.
articulation.
Yeah, it's nothing that you agreed with something else with. It's something that you wanted to do and you are doing. And those things are the things that feel so inevitable and also kind of powerful and useful, and like almost like they came out of nowhere, and there's just no way to heal them apart from to catalyze the lessons that you've chosen to come into this life with. Um, and something else as well is like, yeah, it's the a health problem is a sick articulation in normal society of the breaking point of an energetic wound that has surfaced in the physical body. And all of the problems of health can be resolved completely through having good energy, and there can never be a health problem occurring. Because a health problem is when, after like 5-10 years of being in a sick system or being in a negative connection, the energy that you've been losing the entire time has come to a breaking point and manifested physically. Um, and that's something that's really important about this intention to disconnect from negative connections and connect to positive connections, is that you're not just having a beautiful, perfect resonance in the moment, you're setting up your future self for so many fewer problems that are caused by bad energy that is damaging you over time. Mm.
Yes. This one even has, you can find the ways in the body that this starts manifesting early, because the cell is in a process of receiving from the environment constantly. Like the nucleus isn't actually the brain of the cell, the membrane is the brain of the cell, where it receives and makes decisions and learns things about the world. And as much as we are awash in the systems that we are in, like embodied, like we're breathing the air, regardless of what the air quality is, we're drinking the water, regardless of what the water quality is. The actual biggest chemical system that all of your cells are awash in is your own body. And that means that when you are in positive connection and you are in resonance, your body is creating this healthy, thrumming, delicious, nourishing environment for itself. And therefore, everything that's outside of it becomes diminished as a factor able to influence you.
Mm. This fractal layer of being where everything is influencing everything else at all levels is always the case, where every action and intention and movement that you have is affecting all of the upper layers through the gods and the deities, and all of the lower layers through your cells and the membrane and your skin and everything that's inside of you. Um, and it's not just affecting it in your body, it's affecting it in all bodies of all beings in every star system in this infinite universe. And that's what's meant by interconnection, or like Indra's net, where everything is affecting everything else all the time, regardless of any kind of understanding of space, time, and like the materialist physical nature interpretation of reality. And this is where synchronicities start coming from, is that it's not that you're noticing things conceptually which are like similar in similar situations. You are literally shaping reality along that axis to create things for yourself and the universe that are beneficial for yourself. When you're seeing those numbers at the perfect time that confirm to you that what you're doing is the right thing, and you're following through on it, and it is the right thing, that's all of these different layers of being communicating with each other that are already you.
Yes. This is actually an opportunity for a fun exercise, because with synchronicity, you can turn up the volume and you can turn down the volume sort of based on uh, how much awareness of it or attention to it you pay. And one of the things that I like to do is to invite a symbol into my life as a synchronicity for something that I'm working on or is happening. And I like to use animals because I'm a druid. Well, I'm not really a druid, like a D&D druid. Um, the distinction for the esotericists in the crowd. Um, I feel such profound connection, and I will then, there's this association where it's like, oh, this project that I'm doing is cardinals. And then as soon as that's made, I've introduced the option into my story, into my awareness, into my life, that the universe can send me this particular type of confirmation and I will be recognizing it. And anytime you want to invite that, you're increasing the ability of turning up the volume, asking for more synchronicity, and allowing it to confirm to you.
Mm. And those invitations, when they come to you, they aren't just like a random thought or feeling. They're a intuition of how it really is resonating through the whole universe. And it's like when you choose cardinals for that project, just because it just came to you, there's going to be some resonance in the way that cardinals are existing in reality across the whole of the universe and that project. And that's why it works, is this interconnection of everything that you're just able to recognize and connect with. It's not about choosing random things. There is no randomness. It's about
Yes.
listening to the signals that are coming through you of this interconnected reality that's always the case, and following through on those signals and trusting that, having faith that this really is positive resonance and this really is real. And there actually is no going too far with that when you're connecting with positive connections and disconnecting from negative connections. All of the horror stories you've heard are people that are connected to negative connections having a bad time.
Mm. I wanted to give an example of the synchronicity not being accidental. Is I was When I was possessed by that city, it is a historic industrial city where a lot of weaving took place. And so all of my study was about weaving and women's work and all of these other things. And I started to feel this strong resonance with spider and with using the spider to frame my work and to understand what was happening and to encounter the reality there. And then it became like the entire structure that the thesis that I wrote about it was. And then it turns out that Spider is the deity that I participate in, the cosmic diffraction that I am a part of. And so this pattern was there for me in the most important work of my life without me knowing that that's who and what it was.
And that's the case for all of us. We're getting so many messages of this interconnectedness of these gods that are so intertwined with our being without us even knowing. It's like, oh, I just buy elephant statues whenever I feel like it because, I don't know, they seem nice. It's like, they seem nice exactly because they are nice and they are resonant for you. And you can connect with that much more deeply and realize that actually you're super connected with Ganesha. um, and that's the beautiful thing about reality, is that it is all real and you can notice that. And the more that you notice it, the more it unfolds into all of this specific, beautiful detail that allows you to unfurl your being deeper and deeper into reality.
Yes. In a lot of esoteric traditions, they talk about the veil. And earlier we were talking about how the universe is involved in a game of hide and seek with itself, where it diffracts into all these positions and forgets who it is. And so the veil is actually like a peekaboo veil, where it's like as soon as you look behind it, there's all of this power and all of this presence and all of this being that is you, that is like ready to be anchored into this body.
And we're talking about how the things that are easy to integrate, the things that just come in and are just a part of you and don't impose on you at all, are these things that are already intertwined. And enlightenment, realizing that everything is the one creator, everything is just this divinity, is the ultimate version of that, where it is the ultimate noticing of the way that things already are and always have been. And there is no change in your experience except that that's observed, that it's always been the case, that it's been this perfect, infinite creator,
Mm.
all through time and space as everything, including anything that you think is you. Are we feeling that it's wrap up time?
We have another question in the chat. Are we interested in engaging it or not at this
I think we
time?
can do an after show for questions if people are interested. What do people in the chat say? I think we can stop streaming and then start the stream up again, and we can just do a Q&A. How do the people feel about that in the chat? I'm looking right at you. Yeah, good. Nice.
Great, fantastic.
Do it. Yes. Let's do it. Okay, it's going to be the first time we're going to be doing an after show. The stream is going to stop. The stream is going to restart. We're going to be around in a interactive way, and we're going to engage. And I'm going to post it all over Twitter and stuff too.
Fantastic.
See you soon, guys. It'll probably be 5 minutes of maximum. See you soon. Bye, 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 bye.
Yes.
Thanks so much for watching episode 3 of the Crystallization Culture podcast live Resonate. It has been a pleasure giving you guys whatever I've been able to give you. And I hope that it was not confusing or any more difficult than life already is for you.
Thank you so much for being with us. You can reach out to either of us on Twitter or Instagram via DM. You can book sessions with us. We're available. We're going to have a brief break in service while we are together at the beginning, and then we will open back up for booking.
Yeah, and if you want to transform your life in a gigantic way and you have the money, or maybe you don't have the money and you'd like me to fund a portion of the cost, we offer crystallization culture sessions with me and Amanda for 363.63 pounds GBP. And that's just me and Amanda with you. All of our intent focused on transforming your being. If that's something you're interested in, definitely reach out. I offer
The
enlightenment inquiry sessions, which are by donation. Amanda offers shamanic mentoring sessions, which are by donation. And those are just for people who want to learn. You don't need to be a shaman. You don't need to be a Buddhist. And I also offer rash handling sessions. If you or your friends or a group of people would like to ask questions to Ra, I channel him, and you can do that. Sorry, Amanda, what are you saying?
I was just going to say that on our joint session, our goal really is to give you the maximum amount that you are open to receiving. Like the highest level of transformation that you are open to receiving is what we're going to be able to give you in that session.
Yeah. Whatever you're open to, you can receive. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. We're going to restart.
Yeah.
And we'll be doing the after show. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.